So the weekend is finally about to be over. In terms of like our general fandom, it's not really over yet because we got some football tonight.
Oh yeah,
We had some
love
football today. Your Jets did not do well against the Baltimore
All right,
Ravens.
dude. That's nothing new here.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just how it tends to go. You, on the other hand,
hey man, before we get
thanks to me,
the
by the
Saints'
way.
beautiful comeback
Good job.
win, I feel like I saw Rex Ryan this morning on NFL Countdown, and I'm like, it's crazy that the Jets haven't been good since he was there, and like that was like 2000.
Yeah,
like, that was a long time ago at this point.
And they didn't even make the playoffs the last time they were considered good. It's terrible. Last game of the season. That's all they needed.
Hey man, I figured Joe Flacco might find some old magic against the Ravens, but nope.
No, he thought he was still playing for them, actually.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, in the first half of the Saints game, I felt a lot like a Jets fan because, and by the way, guys, we know this is an MMA show, but you guys just have to deal with this one. We have timestamps. You can skip it if you need to.
But, we got things to say about this card. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we have plenty to talk about, but dude, like, they were down, like, I think it was like 23-10 late in like the third quarter, and then it just looked dire at the most, and like the offensive line looked horrible in the beginning, especially like the interior offensive line. James Hurst too at left tackle didn't look too great, and Jameis had like no time to throw. It was horrible. Like I was having a hard time watching it, and like the defense played okay in the first half, but Cordell Patterson was fucking running circles on them, and then the second half it's like, the Falcons, we know the Falcons like to choke in the second half. They've done it in much bigger games than this one. And they did it again in this one. Mariota's skill seemed to completely go away when the Saints defense started stifling him. And Jameis Winston led like 3 crazy fourth quarter drives and 27-26 dub. So the Saints are 1-0.
It's been
I'll be wearing a jersey every single week.
Entire day of football has been a lot of fun. So
yeah, honestly, I mean,
happy it's back to.
Yeah, we could go into that another time. I would definitely love to go in depth on it, but sadly this is not an NFL podcast. This is an MMA
Yeah, we got
podcast.
business to get to.
Hell yeah, man. And UFC 279 was action-packed, and there was a lot to talk about. I mean, I was thinking about starting with the main event, but I feel like we got to talk about Fight Week first. Like,
you can't. Exactly. You can't talk about this card without that.
Exactly. So, like, obviously, we were talking about it coming in, Chimaev versus Diaz. Not a good spot for Nate to be in, obviously, in his final fight on his contract.
So crazy, dude.
Yeah, like, all that went right. Like, I forget who said this. I really wish I remember, but because I'd love to give him credit. I think it was Luke Thomas. But he said all Nate Diaz really did on Fight Week was show up and make weight. Like, he did his job, and everything around him
because he's a
worked. Like,
professional. He's done this for as long as he has, for a reason. Exactly.
Rookie. Like bro.
Not wrong, dude.
I was dying.
It's not wrong.
I had all that shit to say to Megan O'Leary because I mean he's right. Like,
yeah.
I love that because I will say this. There's obviously the side of it that you could think that this was all like a huge UFC conspiracy that they planned from the get-go, and like I trust me, why people would think that because it did seem like the stars aligned.
It got the hype, because it looked good on paper.
Yeah, I mean, the more I've thought about it, and like the more I thought about it, like, as crazy as it just shit happens. Like, Khamzat's had weight problems before at welterweight, and they said the UFC said that the doctors told him to stop, and he said that, but like, I'm yet to hear that from a source outside of the UFC, and I don't know. I don't believe that personally. I think Khamzat probably just came in way over on purpose, thinking that Nate.
So exactly, you got a bunch of guys practically coming in on short notice, like one way or another.
Yeah, exactly.
Prepared for a fight, but not.
Well, even those other guys, like D-Rod and Kevin Holland, like they were fighting at 180 pounds, and everybody was saying, "Oh, that's real convenient." But like they. That fight didn't exist 2 weeks ago. Like
that's what I'm saying.
They both took. Yeah, you're right. Like they both took those fights on short notice, and like that's something to consider. You could be a conspiracy theorist with all you want. I mean, it's definitely fun, but I think it's just things. The stars really aligned for Nate Diaz specifically in this one, and like Khamzat missing weight like that. Just to start, that's like. I don't even know what to say because I want to just
by
shit
that,
on him completely.
Exactly, by that many pounds too.
Yeah, and like the indifference on the scale too, like just oh well, like and then like even afterwards, like just not even really seeming to give a shit about it. Like that's not good. And, he's saying he wants to fight for the welterweight title at some point. I'm like, you got to make the weight, bro. Like if Nate Diaz is too much pressure for you, because I have a theory. I really think it's mental weakness more than anything. I don't think it's really a physical thing. But I don't know. What's your theory on like what the hell happened with him on this fight week? Because it's been bizarre. I mean,
nah, man. I really haven't even really thought of it like that in terms of theories and whatnot. I was more or less. I was more so just thinking, like clearly, this card getting altered was, if you believe it was because of that theory, so that it could get more buzz to it, more eyes on it, more pay-per-view buys and all of that. But it's like, I'm sure it would have still gotten an incredible amount of buzz anyways if they just made it like that in the first place. I feel like if it got changed to a better fight card, you have all these guys on the card anyways. Why don't you just
Chimaev and Holland.
Give them the time. Exactly.
They had beef before this week. Like, Kevin Holland's been talking shit about Khamzat for the past, year. So it's like, this shit's not just coming out of nowhere, like, with them fighting in the back.
It was all, and it's all out of, pretty much Dana's, pettiness, essentially, for guys. And I like Nate, at least, like, just sending him out, basically, here you go, here's a fight.
I mean,
exactly. Nate, because, no, Nate would have, Nate would have easily put up a better fight than Kevin Holland.
He's better on the ground, but
that would have been.
There's a strength difference, and I was saying before this fight how how Diaz was probably going to get thrown around like Roy McDonald threw him around in that fight a long time ago. It's a similar type of matchup, and if you look at what Khamzat did to Holland, who's much bigger than Nate Diaz, mind you, I don't even want to think about that, like what that fight would have looked like, because it would have been the one that happened, but
would have been ugly, but Nate would have looked good while doing it.
Somehow,
he does a lot of
something cool. He probably would have locked.
I'm sure he would have.
Some shit crazy.
I'm really sure he would have, but
yeah, he just does that. I mean, think about it. Like the welterweight champion, Nate Diaz hit him with a 1-2 in his last fight and almost finished him in the fifth round. So
I told you when we were talking about it when we were watching. It's such a the fight. It was a fight in particular, but it's just what a perplexing card, dude, to talk about. Like this is crazy.
So the Khamzat thing is really just interesting to me because I think it's, it seems almost like the pressure is starting to crack his psyche in some way, because it seems like the bigger these fights are getting, the more altercations he's getting into with different people. It seems like he gets offended by everything that people say. And this week, he started shit with 3 different people, acted like it was him who punked the other one. Meanwhile, it's the other way around. And then you missed weight by all that, and again, even if you want to say that the shit that the UFC is saying about the doctors is true, why did he come in that far overweight anyway? If you're doing a healthy weight cut, you're not going to have that problem most of the time. I mean, I guess it could happen, but come on. He's had problems with his weight before. That's why I just refuse to believe that this is, just some sort of fluke. I don't know, man.
And I get it in the sense, he truly, does want to fight everybody.
That's
true.
Because
he can beat everybody. But now here's my thing. You want to really prove that. Why? I feel like now there's no other option than for Khamzat to go up to 185. And fight some of those guys.
Might force him. I hope they don't, because I think there's still a chance that he can make 170. I think this was just really, my theory is that it's a mental collapse. I don't think this was anything physical. I genuinely believe that the pressure of going against a guy who everybody thinks you're gonna beat. Because you think about it from Nate's perspective, there's no pressure on Nate.
Yeah, really. What does Nate have to lose?
Yeah, Nate's already built his legacy. He's that guy already, and he's. Even win or lose, he was going to be getting a lot of free agent attention outside of the UFC. And so for him, this is just get this fight and get out of my contract.
Mm-hmm.
He's just got to get through it pretty much. Even during fight week, that's another reason why I was kind of pissed during fight week, because Nate just seems so indifferent. You even look at his shape compared to this fight versus the Leon fight. He just looked like he wasn't as prepared.
It's not a good look, man.
No, but like I said, we ended up with a good like fight anyway in between. I think, you know, Khamzat, for all it's worth, it was a better fight for him. I think Holland had a better chance than Diaz was gonna have. But I'm just glad that the MMA gods kind of made that one work for us. But Khamzat, he's got to figure something out because, like I said, I think it's a pressure thing. I think that he sees a guy that he's supposed to beat, and he wanted every single advantage that he could get because it's just some insecurity. Like, I don't know what it is. Because even with the Holland fight, like, the pace that he came out, I mean, we can get to it more during that, and so I'm not going to go too in depth, but, like, that's the pace of, like, somebody who, like, wants to almost, like, get out of there, like, in the sense. Like, he's never fought like that. Like, not in that way. That was, like, reckless to a point. Like, Holland,
the high five. He went for a high five in the beginning and everything. It was like, no, Kevin, he's not playing around with you in there.
Yeah, like, I don't know. That was, like, a guy, like, because he didn't even play on the feet. And against Diaz, you know, he might have had to for a little bit. And like,
for sure.
Diaz has, like, very deceptive, like, and I figured, let's use this to get into the main event, I guess. Like, Diaz has really, like, deceptive power. Like, people say this guy's got no power whatsoever, but, when the fight goes on and it gets into those championship rounds, his, like, those punches start to hurt. And, like, Tony Ferguson is known for having this, you know, granite chin. And his last fight, he got knocked out, but, like, that front kick would have knocked out anybody. So it's like that. I don't really factor that much into that. You know, I just think Tony, like, you know, as the fight was going on, you know, you were saying that they looked a lot older, and I agree with that. Tony especially. Nate, you know, even though Nate
like
did look a step slower, I still think he looked like a Diaz. But Tony, I mean, come on. Like, that was different.
That's a stand-up guillotine that he brought to the ground, and then that was really
one
impressive.
Arm,
yeah, exactly. One
arm.
Yeah, that was awesome.
2:09 left on the clock.
That was super impressive. One way or another. What I was like, I mean, what everybody was like, you know, concerned about. I mean, unless you knew about it already, but the whole with Tony's, shin just busting open right at the start of the fight, and you know that's clearly there.
People say he doesn't check leg kicks, but like there you go. Like, it's not that he doesn't check them. Like, maybe he doesn't check them good all the time, but like he does try. Like he's a stubborn fighter in the sense that he's always gonna have the same style.
So much easier said than done, you know.
He knows how to defend his weaknesses. Like, he's not just like completely disregarding leg kicks. Like, you know, it seemed like he was as the fight went on, but I think it was just because Tony just was landing with volume. And, you know, to get into the scoring, I'm not sure how you had it, but I'll start with how I had it, and then I guess you can play off it. But I gave rounds 1 and 2 to Nate, mainly because of volume and, like, the combinations with his boxing. They were landing, like, really clean on Tony a lot of the time. And Tony, though, was doing really well himself. Like, those rounds were really close. But
it just seemed like a pretty, like, you know, long feeling out process, and rightfully so, obviously. But it definitely seemed like Nate was the one, like, trying to enforce the action more. Tony, you know, was more so trying to counter, I guess, whatever.
Using his footwork.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I
do
do
pressure
really.
him in the beginning,
that
was really it.
That last round was really, like, you know, inspiring from Tony. He did have his moment in that fight, which was really cool.
Round 3 was Tony's round to me. You know, Nate did well at the end of the round. I get that, but Nate, like, you know, this is my theory too. Like, you know, there's a lot of theories for this fight week, but like, people, you know, Sports Center and all, like, the casual UFC followers, they love to use, like, the funny clips, like, of Nate, like, walking around the octagon taking a stroll, but like. You know, Nate, people don't give him credit for how fucking smart he is in that cage. Because, like, to the outside audience, and he knows this, too. He's very aware of it. He knows that the outside audience isn't going to think that he's doing that because he's hurt. But you got to remember, right before he did that, his lead leg was getting ripped apart by Tony. And that's, you know, like what you were saying about how Tony looked like his old self a little bit. He had his moments. That was one of them. Like, I saw that switch flip in his head. Like, it seemed like that killer instinct was turning on, and he was really just attacking Nate's leg because Nate could barely stand at that point. Like, the last leg kick he landed almost swept him off his feet. And then, you know, that's when Nate decided to take the little stroll, probably knowing that Tony wouldn't follow him, and he didn't. You know, Tony played along with the crowd because everybody loved it. And that you could argue that won Nate the fight because, like, that allowed his leg to recover. You know, I can only imagine what Mark Goddard was probably thinking because, like, you know, he knows that Nate's still in the fight, but, like, you know, what are we doing here? He's just saying, like, pick up the action. But I don't know. Like I still gave the round to Tony, even though Nate obviously
Hard to score,
turned
yeah,
it up at the end.
exactly.
All those rounds were close. Did you have any specific like scorecards for yourself, or did you kind of just like?
Not necessarily. I just thought either way, I think Nate would have likely won by unanimous decision.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. I saw
Same,
all
the
different
longer the fight was
scorecards.
going, was better for Nate, and obviously worse for
Clearly.
Tony. Exactly.
And that's the other thing about Tony too. He took a fight that was 3 rounds, and then all of a sudden now he's fighting
Yeah.
a 5
Oh
round
my
fight.
God,
Like, that's a
dude.
big deal, you know. And people don't like. And Tony, like I get that Tony's got crazy good cardio, but that's different. Like you're not
No,
fighting
that's
a 15-minute
exactly.
fight. And you could see it was start those punches that Diaz, like I said in the beginning, Diaz has deceptive power, and it seemed like late in round 3 and obviously early in round 4, that power was really giving Tony fits. And for the first time in Tony's, maybe the Gaethje fight, you could see it in, but
Yeah.
that was different. That was because those punches were like insanely powerful. But this fight, it seemed like just the constant volume of Nate was just clearly bothering Tony. And later in the fight, like it just seemed like it was getting to him a lot, and that's why he shot for that takedown. And it seems like everybody who shoots for a takedown on Nate Diaz and doesn't get in full mount ends up getting submitted. Like Kurt Pellegrino, Taganori Gomi, like even Conor McGregor to a point. Like it's just, and now Tony Ferguson, which is crazy name to have on your resume now. Like by the way, because you think of what Tony Ferguson was like in his prime, those 12 straight wins, interim champion. You know, we've talked about Tony's legacy ad nauseum in this show, and for Nate to get that name on his resume
Yep.
on his way out, damn man, like that's fucking
The
impressive.
story
Like,
writes itself, honestly.
yeah, man. Like Luke Thomas said, like he just came in and he made weight, and everything around him just went into place. And you know, Nate's had a rough run with the UFC in terms of like his relationship with them, and you know you could blame whoever you want to blame for that, but because I'm sure the Diaz brothers aren't easy to deal with, but at the same time, you know the UFC was fucking with them a bit, but like. For Nate to be able to, you know, screw them over like that because you know they wanted him to build the new star, and then for the new star to screw it up like a rookie, like Nate said.
It's great.
Now Nate gets a legend super fight and beats him by a submission, flexes on the camera, 2:09 left on the clock in the championship rounds, and like, you know, now Nate, he's the biggest free agent in combat sports history. Like I hope people understand that. Because he could, even if he comes back to the UFC, he's going to be paid. Like, I don't think he's going to do that for his next fight, though. I think he wants to box. I don't know if he wants to box Jake Paul. Maybe.
Oh, man.
I don't even know.
Oh, God.
You know, we'll see what happens with that.
Oh,
But I don't know
shit. Here
what
we go
Nate's, because
again.
Nate's so unpredictable, man. Like, I don't know what he's trying to go for. And he talked about the Paul Silva fight, too, before, during his media day. He said that, you know, Paul clearly, you know, has like a dedication to it. He's good. Like he's not a bad boxer.
I think Jake Paul would definitely try, especially if he beats Anderson Silva. Like he's definitely gonna try for that.
It's a big money fight, and you know he'll generate like that's a big pay per view. Diaz versus Paul. As much as it kills me to say that, but
what a freaking
universe
we live in.
You know, I don't know if that'd be a good fight for him because Jake's a lot bigger. And, you know, despite what people think, Jake is actually not a bad boxer. I think him versus Anderson is very, very competitive. And that's a fight that I can't wait to see. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about it as it approaches. But, you know, Nate could do that. There's obviously all these other MMA promotions because Nate is one of those guys who's a needle mover. And he could single-handedly change the trajectory of a promotion. Like, you know, who's to say that Nate wouldn't sign with Bellator or PFL just for the bag? Like, he's not the type of... Because he's talked about that before in the past. He's teased it because a lot of his friends fight in Bellator because Bellator is still a big California promotion.
I'm excited, dude.
I'm
really excited for his future. It was really cool to see him go out on top of the UFC.
Exactly. Like, talk about a big win. 2 for 1. I agree, by the way.
Yeah, but honestly, that's really the as far as it gets, honestly, in terms of like positives on the card. It was just unfortunate to see how you know, which we're gonna get into literally next, the Khamzat Kevin fight, and then even the next fight too, Li Jingliang, Daniel Rodriguez.
Li Jingliang is unfortunate. We'll get into that one
for sure.
With the last thing with Khamzat and Nate though is I do agree with Nate that he's 2-0 on the week because, you know, this is my stupidity in my head. This is how I just choose to go and believe it. But by wrestling rules, if one person weighs in and makes weight and the other one doesn't, the one who makes weight wins. That's how it works. Like, they get the win. So that was Nate's logic after that happened, and I agree. Honestly, no. Nate did his job, Khamzat didn't, and Nate made it to that fight. So, yeah, it's not a win, like in the traditional sense, but it's a mental win, in my opinion. That's something that Khamzat has to deal with, and that's going to be a stigma that's going to follow him for the rest of his career.
Easily.
And, like I know you want to get into the co-main, and we can use that to do it. Khamzat obviously got booed on his way out. He got booed at the weigh-ins. And rightfully so, because what he did during fight week was probably the most unprofessional shit you could do. A rookie move, like Nate Diaz said. Rookie playing in the majors. And minor leaguer playing in the majors. I don't even know. Nate, sometimes you can barely understand him, but he was funny. I love that he said, too, that he'll never fight him in the cage, but if you could find him, he'd fight him right there. Because he doesn't deserve to make a paycheck off him, but he beat his ass in the street, which is so funny. Because, for a guy like Khamzat who claims, like, the gangster persona, to pull something that I consider very mentally weak is just like, yeah, I mean, I don't even, like I said, I don't even have any words to just describe it. Like, it was just such a, like you said, this fight week was so negative, and like the main event was such a good ending to it. Thank God. Like, that's amazing that we've at least got something positive. But even the co-main event, Conor McGregor, a lot of times when he tweets, he's fucking out of his mind. But for this one, I 100% agreed with him. He was talking about, let me see if I can find this. He was tweeting about Khamzat still being on the card. And it was like, I really agreed with what he said. I actually liked it. Yeah, here it is. Conor McGregor says Khamzat's weight miss should have cost him the fight. Here we go. My opinion, they should have pulled Khamzat from the card entirely. Reconfiguring bouts with a more favorable bout for the failed cutter will only make others in the game follow suit. The smirks on the scale were enough for me. Pull from the card and starve. McGregor UFC. But, yeah, I agree.
Conor would never do that.
Not for all, we've given Conor shit and we've given Conor praise on this show. But Conor has always showed up and made weight and championship weight.
Conor would never even think about doing something like that. That's literally just... Never. It's a disgrace to the sport.
It's a rookie move. Like, that's not something that a professional at the highest level does during fight week. I don't give a shit if the doctor stopped him from cutting. Like, you should have came in lighter then. If you're gonna be that dire, if it's gonna be that dire of a situation on fight week, like, I'm sorry. Like, there's definitely two schools of thought on it. There's some people who try to sympathize with them. They say that things like this happen, but then there's the other side of it, and I know Ronda Rousey has said this too. You sign the contract, you make the weight. Like, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And it sucks, and we were talking about it too with Charles Oliveira at the time. It's the same thing. Like, we felt bad for him, but at the end of the day, he didn't make weight. So you got to make weight at the end of the day. So Khamzat versus Kevin Holland. Like Conor said, it's a more favorable bout for Khamzat, and right off the bat, he just came out and, like you said, fake the glove touch, and just immediately took him down. And
that was it. That was it from there.
Holland had some decent scrambles. I mean, he did better than I thought.
He was moving. Yeah, no, he didn't just.
I even texted you during it. I said, like, if Holland can somehow get out of this round,
man,
it's going to be interesting to see how gassed Khamzat is, because I've never seen someone come out with such a crazy pace like that and manage to keep it over the course of the next few rounds.
Right, and 8 pounds overweight for their original fight.
Exactly. Yeah. So he had a bad cut. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, I can't even, as much as I want to shit on Khamzat, you can't. Like, with this performance, like, he looked outstanding. His
no secret. Everybody knows this dude is world-class stuff, like, unbelievable.
Exactly. That's why I think the mentals, that's the only thing that's a question.
Now it's, what do we do with it? Like I said, I tried to mention before, force him, because I would really be up. I think middleweight is not necessarily his natural, but I think he would have some really good scraps and guys that were like Whitaker.
Let me hear your thoughts on this. I think he just mauls Adesanya today. That's
why I even mentioned is it just now. I would think so too. In all fairness,
that is a horrible matchup for Israel Adesanya. And you look at what he did to Kevin Holland, who's the same size.
If Adesanya's lucky, he'll have one take. Not that's me trying to 2 takedown defenses at most if he's lucky.
Over a 5-round fight, I don't think he's gonna be. And like then you got to think. Israel off his back, he's historically had pretty good submission defense. He's good off his back. Yeah. He's good at getting up, but he's never fought someone like this. Like this guy's different. And the thing with Izzy is like Izzy could definitely get him in the deep waters in the later rounds, but my thing is like, can he get him there? Because with this fight, I thought if Holland could get him there, he might be able to. But fuck, like
I don't think so, dude.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody in middleweight can defend that.
I really don't think so.
Well, how about that heel turn too? Honestly, like I don't think I've ever seen a fighter during fight week go from loved like Khamzat was to just hated with like no respect. Like I can't think of anybody like even Colby like when
it's a mental thing.
Heel,
I agree with you 100%. It's a mental. It's whatever's going on up there. Like he's got to get it cleaned up.
Yeah, because I don't see him ever winning a title at welterweight.
Oh man.
Like, Usman beats Khamzat, in my opinion. And Colby, I think, beats Khamzat. Leon, a little questionable. I don't know. But it's tough. It's tough at welterweight with all those grapplers because those are the types who are going to definitely test him. But at middleweight, I agree with you. I think they should tell him, hey, man, go up. Because Izzy's looking for new blood if he doesn't beat Pereira. Exactly. So... yeah, I mean, I think that's enough about Khamzat. You know, he looked great in this fight, obviously. Yeah. Shout out to Kevin Holland, too, for taking this fight. Because, you know, Joe Rogan obviously saying, do you think this is a more favorable matchup? You can go, fuck no. Like, he goes, what kind of question is that? It's like, you got to respect it, because that's gangster. You know, the guy tries to fight you in the back, you step up on him, and then you get broken up by a bunch of people. He deserved that fight. You know,
exactly. No matter which way you slice it, too, like, that's a win and a loss on each record. Like, you know, I mean, that's a lot of pride going into that. So
yeah, well, Holland can say to himself, "I wasn't afraid." You know, he took that fight head on, and he definitely probably suffered the worst possible outcome that he was going to suffer. So it sucks. He'll be back. It really does. He'll be back. Hopefully, they give him like Wonder Boy or maybe rebook the Daniel Rodriguez fight. But speaking of Daniel Rodriguez, I say we go to that. You know, I want to start by saying I love D-Rod. Like, I've always been a big fan of him. I speak highly of him every time, and I'm going to even speak highly of him in a bit for this fight. But I have to start with the scorecards. He beat Li Jingliang by split decision, 29-28 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. I don't know how any of those judges gave two of those rounds to D-Rod. One, let alone 2. Like... what rounds? Like, tell me what rounds.
Straight robbery, man.
Yeah, like, it's not often I cry robbery, man.
If they're going to call... my guess is the first and obviously the last round. First was close enough. And even then, it was clear to see that Li Jingliang won that.
He was landing the
round 2, no question. And then Rodriguez wins one round. And
even that round was questionable. You can even argue that round for Lee. It's just like...
man,
that was a rough one, man. That was a rough one.
It's especially on like, you know, just once again the way, you know, even this fight happened, came together, and then for it still to, you know, it's still a pay-per-view, you know, main card pay-per-view fight. Like, gotta be better. You just gotta be better.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Rodriguez obviously, you know, is weighing in at catch weight, 180 pounds, and then Li Jingliang made 170.
10-pound weight.
Li is the biggest gangster of this whole card. I said that on the Instagram.
Oh, yeah, because he
really took a fight that was not good for him. Like, D-Rod is better than, I think, especially looking at the main event and seeing how Tony looked. Daniel Rodriguez was definitely a tougher fight than Tony was going to be. And... because, God, I'm glad.
And he should have arguably, unbiased show, beat Daniel Rodriguez.
He should have won. He really should have won that fight.
It was pretty clear. It was pretty clear who won that fight.
I don't know how. Because I'll say this for D-Rod, like, his boxing looked sharp. His jab looked incredible, as it always does. And he really turned it up during round 3 when he needed to. And, you know, he looked a little bit slower. I don't know if that was ring rust or if it was the extra weight. Could be either. Probably both, honestly. But Lee, throughout this fight, his kicks looked incredible. Like the body kicks, the leg kicks.
Yeah,
even the power punches over that he was countering the jab with. You gotta feel for Li Jingliang, man.
I really do.
And he didn't get to show off his cool suit. Do you see his suit?
Not right, man.
It's not
right.
cool. Even Nate said his suit was dope. Isn't it? I think that's funny that Nate even recognized. But he called him Chen Li. It's not even his name. Like they were like his name's Li Jingliang. You know that, right? And he's like, man, I don't know. He's like, he had a cool suit.
He had a cool suit.
But yeah, Nate in his post-fight stuff was truly electric. Even in his pre-fight stuff, he was electric. I liked when he was talking. When he was talking to Joe Rogan before at the ceremonial weigh-ins? That was funny. He's like, punked his bitch ass in the back, and he goes, I'm 2-0 this week, and he's like talking about real gangsters coming from California. Like, I love it. I love it. And then Tony too with the popcorn and blue slushies. Like, that's such a Tony.
That's awesome, dude.
I'm a boat because boats stay afloat. But anyway, back to
fight. Fight week wasn't all bad,
Yeah, it had its
I guess
moments.
you could say.
And even the fights on the card, like, some of them were definitely like matchups that you feel bad for like certain people, but the fights were all pretty good.
Yeah, man.
And even the D-Rod Li Jingliang fight was good because it was a good close fight, all on the feet. And it just sucks.
Really, any robbery decision, like clear, obvious robbery. Like we at home, like are obviously scoring it better than the judges who are there themselves.
Dude, the
come
third
on.
judge had it right. The other two
gotta be better.
Completely, like I don't know what they were thinking, giving D-Rod 2 of those 3 rounds, just because like. I don't know. I thought Lee was doing more on the feet, and it was more effective than what D-Rod was doing. That's my personal opinion. But you feel for Li Jingliang because he gets robbed of the biggest fight of his career versus Ferguson.
Easily.
Which would have probably been a knockout win if we're looking at it, like, honestly. But, he loses. It's unfortunate. The UFC, though, will have his back for what he's done. So, hopefully he gets, like, a favorable big name matchup in his next fight.
Guys are pros for a reason at the end of the day.
Yeah, man. And Lee is the definition of a professional.
Yep.
Some people on this card, definition of unprofessional. But we've talked ad nauseum about that guy. So we'll keep it going. Irene Aldana finishes Macy Chiasson with one of the craziest finishes.
That's a prospect pick right there.
Yeah, no, for real. Like,
I loved to see that, and that was this was probably the best fight on the, at least for the main card, like best fight of the card.
Yeah, I thought the main event was the best, but I remember
in a story sense, but
yeah, I understand. Being caught up in like the age factor of it too. They definitely get it. Like they definitely look like their old selves, but
this was really exciting though. This fight right here. Yeah. And oh my god, the finish, dude! Every time I see, I'll always cringe at a finish like that. It's so.
Yeah. I didn't even know what happened at first. I thought I thought maybe she kicked her, in her area.
Off the back and everything like that.
Yeah, because like she was down, and then I was like, did she kick her like? Between her
man.
legs, and I was like, right, she kick her in the rib. I'm like,
right in the freaking liver.
With her heel too. Like
that's incredible.
Irene Aldana, like she's a threat, man. Like her boxing is good. She's got strikes off her back. Like I was impressed by that. That was a tough fight too. Like because Chiasson had her moments too, and Chiasson's a good fighter. And I think. Did she miss? I think she missed weight too, so she was bigger in there.
Really?
Yeah, well, she's big for 135. She's fought fights at featherweight too. She says she wants to go back and forth, but like Khamzat, you gotta figure it out. I mean, like, damn, just make the weight. She's had problems with it in the past, so. And I remember one of her fights was I think against Aspen Ladd, and then Aspen Ladd missed weight. It's been a weird history for Macy Chiasson. She's had some bad luck in the UFC herself, honestly. But even in this fight, because she looked pretty good even against Aldana, but that finish, man, like, I don't know how much more.
That is a statement victory right there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where Aldana goes from here. Let me pull up the rankings, see where women's bantamweight is, what it's looking like at the moment. Pound for pound. She's at number 4. Holly Holm beat her, but Holly Holm is coming off a loss, so I don't feel like she can hold that spot, right? I don't think that's fair, you know what I mean? Even though, like, she's in a rough spot, because, like, Amanda Nunes is just dispatched of everybody.
Man, it's unfortunate. Like, she's really fallen, like, victim to the division she's in.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
She's still clearly just so, talented.
You could argue that she could deserve a Nunes fight, but not before Ketlin Vieira. In my opinion.
No, yeah.
So maybe one more in there. Maybe give her like Raquel Pennington.
No.
What do you think of that?
That would be. I think that would be a fantastic fight too. But honestly, Kellen Vieira, I think that would have like fight of the year potential. I think.
Yeah, well, I still think that Nunes should be fighting Pena in a trilogy, which makes the whole division
I
a
agree.
logjam. I get it.
I have no qualm with that whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, Pena's earned it. You can't beat the GOAT and not get another shot. Like, come on. So it's tough. She's like you said, she's definitely a victim of the division that she's in. But nonetheless, you said she's your prospect. You know, I understand why. Obviously, after this fight, you know, great win by Aldana, and hopefully she gets another big fight from here. Maybe Raquel Pennington. I would like to see that. It'd be a war, honestly. So, another fight that was on the main card that was honestly I enjoyed it while it was on. It wasn't very long, but Johnny Walker versus
Cutelaba. Another OG kind of feel to this fight.
Yeah, I mean Walker, you know, fresh off sobriety, as he said. THC, hey man, good for him.
Hell yeah, love
THC was apparently messing with his mind and making him paranoid. You know, hey man,
dude's best for you.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the future holds for him. But in terms of this fight, you know, it seemed like he was pretty clear-headed because Cutelaba took him down early. It seemed like this fight might trend in a negative direction because of that, because Cutelaba has incredible ground and pound. But
he had to work off his back.
He did well, man. I mean, he threatened with submissions. He got up, reversed position, and then got a rear naked choke. Like, that was some great jiu-jitsu by Johnny Walker. Like, he showed a lot about his game in this fight. Like, you know, he looked really good. I don't know if the fans was what really energized him, but I was really impressed by this win, honestly, because I figured if this fight went to the ground, Cutelaba was going to have his way with him. But great win for Johnny Walker.
Nice little Johnny Walker resurgence, perhaps.
Yeah, he's still ranked, I believe. Let's see where.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, he's definitely still in the top 15 somewhere. Yeah, he's number 13. And let's see. I don't think, Cutelaba wasn't ranked, but he's borderline, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, he's already beaten Ryan Spann, who's ranked above him. I think he'll probably go up one spot because Krylov is at number 11, and Krylov whooped Johnny Walker, to be frank. And Walker beat Ryan Spann, so I think it only makes sense that Walker goes to 12.
I think John Walker can definitely have a good scrap with any of those guys in the top of 205.
It's because of his power. Like, that always makes him a threat. And then obviously you look at his jiu-jitsu game in this fight, looked pretty good. Like, he's improving. You know, I like
exactly.
If
he's gonna really, you know, enhance on that the jiu-jitsu aspect, the ground game of his, you know, of his fight, then yeah, he can really hang with anybody.
Yeah, I was really impressed by Johnny Walker in this one. So great win by him over a tough opponent, and hopefully he gets the credit he deserves. Because obviously a Nate Diaz fight card, it's hard to make it known that you got the biggest win, because any Nate Diaz win is a big win.
Mm-hmm.
So. Good win, though, by Johnny Walker. Like I said, the main card wasn't that bad for all that fight week.
For all intensive purposes.
Yeah. Considering what my expectations were coming in, you know, this definitely was good. I enjoyed it for the most part. But the prelims were pretty good, too. I mean, Julian Erosa out-MMA'd Hakeem Dawodu. I just wanted to point that out because it was a good fight. I mean, I honestly don't have much to say about it. I don't know if you have much to add, but like we were kind of saying with Nathaniel Wood last week, it's just kind of a good performance.
Yeah,
around.
It was impressive.
Yeah,
that was the one the judges clearly got right. Unanimous decision all 3 rounds. But.
Yeah, and he looked good on the feet against a guy like Dawodu, who's great Muay Thai.
Yeah.
So good win for Julian Erosa. So on the up and up at 145.
Definitely.
Jailton Almeida, I will admit.
I really liked this.
I watched it after the fact. I fell asleep during it because I was literally exhausted. I don't know why, but thankfully I fell asleep during the prelims and not the main card.
Yeah.
But I'll let you talk. What were your thoughts?
I mean, dude, like, this finish speaks for itself. To go from working in the rear naked choke, then going to the armbar, and then going again to the rear naked choke, and then finishing it that way, it's just that honestly made me quite a bit of a Jailton Almeida fan. I'm gonna be keeping an eye on this guy for sure.
Yeah, he's got a good record too. I mean, he comes from Brazil, so I always take that with a grain of salt because, you know, Brazilians like the Russian fighters sometimes. They like to pad their fighters' records. So I'm gonna look up his record real fast just to see what it's looking like. That's a cool nickname. He's 17-2 now. I wish I didn't do this. I just ruined it for myself, man. The guy he beat on the Contender Series was good, and he beat Danilo Marquez, in his first UFC fight, which was a
Okay.
good win. Then he beat Parker Porter. That's a good win. All of his UFC wins, I have no those are all great wins. But his wins in Brazil, man.
Oh, he's just
Oh, dude. All right, I'm gonna read
beating guys off the
read
street.
some of these. I'm gonna read it from like most recent to like the beginning of his career. So we're at 2021, right before he got into the UFC. His last Thunder fight, 24. That was his last regional promotion fight. He won via rear naked choke in round 1. His opponent's record was 37-29. The opponent before that, arm triangle, first round submission, 26-14.
Okay.
Another
terrible.
one, 5-2. 19-4, that's a solid one. Then there's a few 0-0s in there. There's an 0-3 in there. That's not good. That's not good. 11-6, 2-2. Yeah, I mean, we've, like I said, as great as that win was, take these wins with a grain of salt. But nonetheless, Parker Porter, Danilo Marquez, and now Anton Turk.
Yeah, man. I'm keeping an eye out.
Yeah, man. All first round finishes too, I think. So, I'm impressed by his UFC run so far, but I still want to see a little more before I'm crowning him, you know what I mean? So, good win by Jailton, but I'm a fan. I'm definitely looking forward to his next fight. But another guy we're huge fans of, man. I know you didn't get to see much of this fight, but Chris Barnett, dude. Oh, man. He came back from
It's a Selly, though. The post-fight Selly. I definitely got to caught that on Instagram.
Bro. He's one
amazing.
Of the most marketable guys in the division.
The beers, crazy. Too. Wow.
And then they left him
at
the
exactly.
Hospital.
And the way he's winning. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Poor guy, left him at the hospital. That's not good, too, because, like I said, round 1, he came back from the dead. that fight, it was not looking good. Like, Jake Collier, he came out with, because he said before the fight he didn't think that Barnett was truly on his level, but, it sucks when you lose after saying that. But in round 1, it really looked like it because he came out, really just guns blazing, and he hurt Barnett bad, taking him down. He really was having his way with him. And, it looked like Barnett was screwed because I don't know what was going on with his mouth, but his jaw looked screwed up.
Bruh.
His eye was basically closed by the end of the first round.
Yeah, that is a little concerning. Yeah, that is pretty concerning.
And then they're talking, too, about... his personal problems, before the fight. And he missed weight too, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
Oh man.
But that's heavyweight too. But I think they said his fiance died and he was in a bad spot. I'm like, and then he's getting his ass beat by Jake Collier. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, this is horrible. And then, he comes out in round 2, man. Incredible. The way he just...
I have no choice but to tip your cap. Seriously.
Yeah, man. He got Jake Collier down. I think it was Jake Collier tried to take him down, and he defended it and got on his back, and then just was raining down ground and pound. And you could tell he was not stopping until that fight was over. And just the heart shown, even the takedown defense in the midst of all that happening, clearly just being screwed up too with his eye.
Yep.
Then his lip was all his jaw was all screwed up. It's just great.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. And
he needed that.
I hope he can stay in good spirits. Cause, man.
He seemed hyped after the fight, and he seemed really happy. Even after at the hospital when he was left on the side of the road, he said he was going to put his thumb out and do tricks.
Good for him, man. That's
he said
awesome.
he was going to be a hitchhiker.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wouldn't hitchhike in Vegas. Just piece of advice. It's not the safest of all areas. Yeah, you can speak for me. I could say this, our hotel that we were at, it was an average hotel, it was a Wyndham place, so it's not too great, not too bad, and it was probably a maybe 5-10 minute drive to T-Mobile Arena. And technically it was in walking distance, and we noted that, in the car with our first Uber driver, and the Uber driver was like, yeah, don't do that. They said, yeah, the streets of Vegas, that's whatever, but, this little area that we're in right now, in between, don't walk here. You might actually die. And so we were like, yeah, okay, that's enough for us. No point in going out there. So, yeah, we took Ubers all the way through in Vegas, so we didn't want to die out there in the desert. And,
smart.
Yeah, so a piece of advice to Chris Barnett, just from me, don't hitchhike in Las Vegas. Yeah, with that, we'll get to the last fight I kind of want to talk about on the prelims with Norma Dumont, who Laura Sanko was really complimentary of this fight week. I don't know if you saw that. She was saying at the weigh-in shows, she was weighing in and she bent over to like put her pants back on after like getting on the scale. And Laura Sanko goes, "She is driving a dump truck." My goodness. Bro, dead. I was dying, dude. That was so funny. I couldn't believe she just actually. I love the weigh-in shows, man. Like, and that's another like that was something that I really fell in love with when I was in Las Vegas myself, watching it for UFC 264.
Yeah, dude.
And
for
everyone.
Connor fight too, man.
Yeah, dude. Because they're getting drunk at like 9 in the morning. I love it. Like the weigh-in shows are beautiful.
I believe it 1,000%.
They should do that during the fight. Like I get DC commentates the pay-per-views, but like let's have Sanko, Dan Hellie, and Dean Thomas, and then add someone else as the final person. Like, do that during the fights. Fuck the Gronk shit. Like, we talked about that, man. Let's never do that again. But, you know, I'm going on a bit of a tangent. Norma Dumont against Danielle Wolf. She looked incredible. And apparently Danielle Wolf was like a Golden Glove champion in the past. Great striker, very athletic, a lot taller, too, physically. Like, really a lot bigger than Norma. But... you know, we were talking about out MMAing people with the Erosa Dawoodu fight. This is really what happened in this fight, too. Yeah. I mean, Norma Dumont took Danielle Wolf down at will, pretty much. Outstruck her, which was pretty impressive. Wolf just never really seemed to get going. I don't know. Like, what did you think of this fight?
Just more of the same. Like, it was another one of these fights where just, you know, it takes a minute to get into. And then, you know, once you do get into it, you realize, you understand it for what it actually is.
It's a good performance by Norma. And they were saying this on the broadcast, too. It's 100% true. Like, Danielle Wolf, she's 1-0 as a professional. It doesn't look good. And, you know, she was hyped up coming in. But, like, 145, you said it, they don't have a lot of contenders. Like, you go in the UFC at that weight class, you're fighting the best. And Norma Dumont is a really good fighter. And she called for a title shot at 145. And just before I say what I want to say, what do you think of that? Do you think that she's earned that right?
I think it's fair, yeah. I think she deserves that.
Challenges?
Yeah, seriously, dude.
Let's see her
what do we really got to lose here?
Yeah, no, I think she's like on a decent.
I think she deserves it.
Let's see.
It's worth it.
Actually, no, she lost by split decision to Macy Chiasson. There you go. On the Gaethje versus Oliveira card, she beat Aspen Ladd, beats Felicia Spencer, beat Ashley Evans.
Yeah,
Smith.
dude, so these are good names.
She's won 3 out of her last 4, and in a division where there's like no contenders, and if Amanda wants to defend that belt so badly. Why not? Let's do it in Brazil.
Seriously.
Nunes versus Dumont.
I love it, dude. I love it.
it.
I want to see it.
Let's do it. Let's book that one.
Hell yeah.
But, all right. UFC 279, I think we've...
in the books.
Yeah, I think we've talked about
insane.
That was a great card.
One day, it's one word it's gonna be talked about for a long time. For one way,
yeah,
one reason or the other.
Coming out of there, and
seriously.
A lot will be to come. Obviously, with Nate Diaz and his future, we'll see what happens there. Even Tony Ferguson's future, and a lot of different guys that we really need to know a lot more about. And Khamzat too, man. Like, you know, one of the most impressive fighters on the roster, but clearly has something there that he needs to fix, whatever that may be in his head. But overall, you know, fight week aside, that was a pretty good card. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll get into just a little bit of other MMA news. Just one thing I really wanted to cover because we've talked about it in the past, but. It's bad news, but it was also followed with good news in the caption.
Right.
Bigfoot Silva has been knocked out again by that kickboxer who we were talking about when we mentioned it. That is his 11th straight loss. And that's horrible, obviously. It's bad news. But the good news is he said that he has a family and he does want one more fight, but he wants to retire after
all right.
that.
Awesome.
And, hey, man. Fine.
I think
if that's what it takes, we'll give him don't give him a killer, please.
Yeah, come on.
Don't give this guy someone he can beat. Like give him like a fucking bus driver from Boise, Idaho or something. Like what are we doing? Give him like 105 like kickboxers here. Like give him somebody who he's capable of beating, and let him go out on a high note, or at least like a decently high note. So
seriously, man.
I hated seeing that he lost again. I really did. Like that made me feel shitty. And at least he wants to retire though.
Yeah,
so we've gotten that much out of him. Thank God.
The most important thing is he's finally, learned to quit while he's ahead. Even though he's still taking...
I wouldn't call this quitting while he's ahead.
Well, he's still taking one more fight, so... We'll see.
No,
we'll see.
You can't lose 11 straight and call that ahead.
You're right.
In my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. It's not even... 11 is such an obscure number, too. It's not even like... Oh, yeah. It's not like 5 even would be...
Yeah, Tony Ferguson has lost 5 straight, and look what we're saying about Tony.
I was trying to give him.
Silva's lost 11 straight.
While you're way ahead is what I really meant to say. But hey, man, one more. Yeah. We'll see. Hopefully, yeah, he gets that
one, and hopefully he gets a win out.
He gets that bus driver.
But overall, good weekend. Saints win. Who dat? And Nate Diaz really shows the UFC who's boss and gets a big win. In his final, who knows?
Stockton pride.
Yeah, man. It was great seeing him get the win. And it's been a fun weekend in combat sports. And hopefully next weekend is the same. Next weekend is Sandhagen versus Song Yadong.
Yep.
Did you see the snap I sent you last night? Because it was Sadiq Youssef next week. He's fighting at 145. He has no opponent. And
I meant to reply. I didn't see it. I had just woken up and was like, oh, yeah.
I sent Tiz a snap like very late at night after the card. And when they showed that, and I said, I'll fight him. No, I will not fight
make
him.
That weight.
I could make the weight, but I would not do well in the fight at all.
It'd be a lot closer to weight than Khamzat was.
I guess, yeah. I'd be a little bit more professional. I guess I could say that.
Definitely.
But, yeah, no, it wouldn't be as fun, though, when I get knocked out in about 12 seconds by Sadiq Youssef with, like, an uppercut, and that sends me to the shadow realm.
The paycheck would be nice, though.
Probably not. Probably not. I'm getting like fucking 12 grand, bro, to get slept by Sadiq Youssef. No thanks. Actually, I'll take it. Why not? Hey, UFC matchmakers.
You'll take it.
I'll take it.
You know you'll
12K
take it.
to get knocked out, I'm here for it, Sadiq Youssef is one of those guys that they want to push, and he... What else could they ask for besides
Rob's been making a bunch of hypothetical fights, on this show at the very beginning. Like, he wants this fight, just make it happen.
Hey, maybe. I'm not as excited about this one. Let's just be clear. I'm not as excited. So, if it happens and I can get a little bit of money out of it, I'll take a losing paycheck and get knocked out and probably sent to the hospital by Sadiq Youssef. But all respect to him because he's a great fighter. I'm a big fan.
Hey man, as long as you're able to get back for this show, then
I don't know
and talk about it with me the next day.
In the co-main event, we had Sadiq Youssef versus me. Things did not go well.
Hey guys, it's Diz. So Rob had his fight last night.
It's like you said, it's definitely going to be a solo pod, just you.
And how you could have guessed it was gonna go.
Yeah. Rob came out, he came out aggressive, trying to go with the 1-2, but then Sadiq Youssef just shook right and just hit him with an overhand right that sent Rob to the hospital.
To the shadow realm.
He's doing okay, but not good enough.
Give it a week or two, he'll be back.
Yeah, so I guess we'll talk next week if I do have that fight, but the main event's going to be great too with Corey Sandhagen and Song Yadong. Great fight between two rising stars in the bantamweight division. And we'll be back to talk about it, so we'll see you guys then.